Hey, we're here and we're back on the podcast to talk about this exciting idea called an injectable marketing team model that can help you and your brand reach your next inflection point. And the guy here to help us out with this is Mr. Jake Levin from Inflection-Growth.com. And they're not just another marketing team. They're the dream team that you've been searching for when it comes to performance marketing, brand strategy, creative execution, conversion rate optimization, marketing analytics, all these things that we know we need to do, but it takes a special mind, a special team to do those things. So it's Mr. Jake Levin from Inflection-Growth.com here to talk about just all this marketing, analytics, the metrics, the numbers, like getting all the math to work, and we'll have a lot of fun. So Mr. Jake, glad to be speaking with you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. And so, what are you all about? What has you excited these days? I introduced you a little bit with your bio, but there's always something missing, right? The passion, the excitement. So what just has you just super jazzed these days?
It's always been growing businesses. So we call ourselves Inflection Growth because we try to help companies get to their next inflection point. So whether that's 0 to 1, getting companies off the ground, or a lot of times companies get stuck later in their life cycle and need kind of a rejuvenation to get to the next inflection point. We set out to create a way to help companies do that in a seamless manner. And basically, the philosophy is that when you're doing marketing, it's an engine, so everything is interconnected. And what we found is it's very difficult to find teams and agencies, organizations that know how to talk to each other correctly and ultimately diagnose where the areas of opportunity are or the problems are, and then sequentially be able to solve those problems and actually execute on the ground. So our goal has always been that, we're constantly evaluating what the opportunities are or what the problems are, and then figuring out how we can execute and actually move the company forward.
Very cool. That good old SWOT analysis, right? The strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and these ideas that, well, on your different paths to growth, you get to these plateaus, right? You're like, well, I'm on this track and I get to this point, but then that only gets me so far, and then I have to change things up, and then one person can't do it all. You need these different teams of people kind of having these different tasks. So there's a lot to figure out, a lot to kind of manage and lead. And so when you jump in with these marketing companies or get their marketing figured out, like where's the hurt? Like where are people stuck? Where do they need you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of times it's around their concept of their brand identity and where their brand actually fits in. Countless founders and teams think that their company is in the industry one place where it's in fact another, whether they think that they're a luxury brand and they're truly not, or whether they're trying to go after a certain demographic and they're truly not. So a lot of it is actually demonstrating, okay, here's your customers, and these are for established companies. For new companies, it's saying, okay, you might think your customer base is here, but we really need some data to back that up. So the first thing is just gathering information to prove to the internal team or founders, here's where your actual audience is. Because ultimately it comes down to there has to be a product market fit, and there has to be quality with whatever the thing that you're selling is. So if you're not actually targeting the right people as a marketing team, it makes it very challenging for us if we're making creative or strategy decisions based on the incorrect audience, and therefore not resonating with anybody, and ultimately not hitting growth goals.
Of course. And that makes a lot of sense how a company might have just like fallen into some sort of strategy just because, and you're like, well, hey, here's the data. Here's where your traffic and your audience really is, and here's what you should be pursuing. And so you sort of have that data, you convince the team, and then like, what sort of like work or change or transformation do you do? What really excites you about when saying like, well, here's the before picture, here's the after picture, we do this kind of work? Like what's the work that's done as far as maybe getting everything working very well?
Yeah, so I have a good example of one of our partners is a um, a company that is in the athletic space. And in the athletic space, there's a lot of subgenres because you think about whether it be equipment, apparel, etc. There's a lot of different sports, a lot of different ways that you can be active. So, typical to a lot of marketers and mentors of mine who always really accentuated the idea of focus and making sure that you're focused on a really segmented core audience. We went into this business that was very much plateauing after about 7 years. They were just kind of trudging along. The sales weren't increasing that much. And we came in and we said, okay, you're just generally going after the athletic space, the active person. So you're going against Nike and Adidas, and you're going against, all these big companies that basically do every sport. Um, and we need to be more focused than that. So we started testing different types of creative and different marketing strategies around, okay, should we go into certain specific sports? Should we go into certain specific areas? Should we focus on certain demographics? Ultimately, we did a kind of a big a big testing of these different segments that went across the entire marketing funnel. So channels, creative, the actual ads themselves, and then the landing pages. And lo and behold, we came out with a segment that worked a lot better than the rest, which was the marathon segment, which is a fast growing a segment in the athletic space, but it's very segmented. It's only there's only a certain amount of people in the world that do marathons. So once we started focusing on that part of the industry, everything took off because what we found was that because we were focusing on an area that was very niche but also very extreme, we're also getting your everyday person too. They said if it's good enough for a marathon runner, it's good enough for me, which was the thesis of it. So basically, over the last 2-3 years since that discovery, we have either doubled or tripled revenue every single year. And it's just those types of wins make it all worth it. Where you go in and you try to pick and find the golden egg, or the thread to pull on, and when you do find it and you're able to pull on it, it really makes the big difference. And as marketers, that's the most that's the best feeling.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like it seems like a lot of fun to say like, hey, you guys are close, but there's some reconfiguring that needs to be done. Going after all of athletics, just focus on the marathoners and do a better job of competing in this kind of more niche down space, and that way people kind of know what you do and you're more specialized. And so when you were doing that, was there any sort of pushback, or were there any kind of struggles, frustrations in getting this all implemented?
It depends on the founder or the head of marketing or whoever we're working with, but there's a lot of times pushback because especially with a founder who has a very solidified idea of who they want to be going after or what the concept and brand is, it really comes down to asking to test things. And usually when we partner with businesses, they have a certain level of trust in us, and we show them our track record and everything like that. And once we can start testing, then you just show the data. And any good business person is going to be able to look at data and change their mind when they see results. Because revenue speaks. If you're getting revenue, people are happy and they're more open to trying new things.
Well, very nice. So it's like you're armed with the data, and you go in so that way when it's time for someone to kind of accept your plan, you say, well, hey, I'm not just making this up, and it's just an important life skill in general, right? To be willing to change your mind, but not necessarily be gullible and throw out something that's working and say, well, hey, I'm willing to look at things differently. If you have the data, you have the proof, then hey, we'll try this new things, and we'll give it an experiment. And if it works, well, then hey, look at that. Now our company is back on this path to growth, whereas before struggling, stressed, not sure what happened, and that's what led them to you. And you said, hey, like we worked our magic, we did our thing. And so as far as like your own kind of entrepreneurial journey here, Mr. Jake, like you grow a company yourself, and you do all these all these different tasks, and you deal with people, and you deal with all the various obstacles. What have you struggled with? What do you think is maybe difficult or unspoken these days about being an entrepreneur growing a company?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that ultimately, dealing with the short term versus long term goals, I was around, if I could go back for a second to the beginning of my career, I was in startups since I was in college. My first big startup that I was a part of was called GoPuff, and GoPuff, which is now a multi-billion dollar company, running marketing there for the first 4 years was an incredible experience, but it also it skewed my mind about what short-term versus long-term goals were, because we're talking about the years 2013 to 2017. And this is right in the middle of when startups were getting these huge rounds of funding and really it was just a renaissance in the startup era, modern era, where you think about Airbnb and all the different delivery services, and we were right in there, getting these enormous injections of cash. And what happened was, you're comparing yourself now to other companies in the industry at those points, and then further along than you. And there was this mantra of it's $1 billion or nothing, it's unicorn or nothing, and was incredibly driving to have that always going on in the background. But at the same time, as time moved along, and I moved to a second startup, built another company in a similar space. Once we hit COVID and this economic drop that happened at the end of 2022, everything changed. Everything went back to more of a profit-driven, healthy growth. A lot of these big, fast-growing companies weren't able to sustain it because the VC money went dry, and people really had to shift their mindset. And it wasn't just about how fast can I grow and how big, and how do I get to X revenue goals so that I can get more funding. The same went for my business as I moved through those first two startups and now switched over into the more service side. And we have our own internal brands that we grow too. But um, it was I think the most difficult thing was, whether it be hiring or revenue goals, being able to pull back your expectations to say, okay, what's the healthiest way to grow this business that it's is going to make it self-sustaining for both my own business and our partners, while still feeling good about going forward and not feeling like fighting against that old urge to say, well, I have to be the biggest, I have to be the industry leader, because ultimately that's just not how it is right now, and we had to all kind of change our philosophy.
Very nice. Well, what I get from your answer there is how important it is to be like asking yourself the right questions and to kind of ask that on a regular basis. So instead of saying, well, how can we be that $1 billion company, or how can we do what these other people are doing? You're saying, well, hey, how are we doing on this path to growth, or managing our people, or just getting those metrics that we decided, keeping that on track and keeping that going very well. And so you've seen some things, basically, right? You've seen the startups, and you've grown your company, and you've helped these other companies get their marketing dialed in. And we've kind of jumped around and talked about all these different things. But since it's your show, you're the star of the show, I want to definitely cover what interests and excites you. So we've been jumping around all these topics, but what's the missing, hidden, invisible question in our conversation? What should I be asking you? I just don't know what to ask you.
Well, that's a little question. I think that there's a lot of different things that we talk about internally that are important to us. I think that it kind of goes back to your last question of what is growth, because I know that sounds a bit ethereal, but ultimately we work with a bunch of different companies that have different definitions of that. I run our company and we have our own definition of that, but I think that this new way of thinking in the business world allows a better or more intricate definition of what growth is, versus 5, 10 years ago, when obviously growth is the revenue that you bring in. Obviously growth is the amount of the amount of funding that you bring in, or what you sell your company for. So I think that that's ultimately what has really is really something I think about every day. For example, with my business, are we creating a really satisfying place to work and where people feel like they're moving forward in their careers. With our businesses, uh, do we feel like we've given them a new sort of option for a growth partner that they haven't experienced before, which is our thesis? Because I mean, we could talk about hey, we set out to create this new type of marketing partner, this new way of companies being able to grow hand in hand with us. But if the businesses we work with aren't actually seeing and believing that, then we're kind of just fooling ourselves. So I just think that growth is defined by more than just the amount of revenue you bring in or some of those other things I mentioned, more so than earlier on in my career. So, and let alone personal growth too, and personal life. I think that that's something that I like to ask myself all the time, and I urge other founders to do that as well, because there's more than just the kind of straightforward definition of just the numbers going up.
Yeah. So it seems like there's a lot of attention, awareness, rethinking assumptions, just to because a lot of these problems that are in front of us, they're not easily solved. They are ongoing. They are long term. You even mentioned the long term versus short term earlier. So these are all important, helpful things for us to consider. But then it's also quite a logical path for someone to say, okay, Jake has woken me up, or it's like speaking my language. I know I have some of these things to figure out with my company, and I know that what I've done so far has led me here, but will not lead me into the future. And we need Inflection Growth, this marketing dream team, to help us out. So how does somebody know if they're a good fit for you and your services, and what might those services be?
So we work with businesses in three type of ways. We do general advising and consulting. That's kind of the smallest segment, which is pretty straightforward. Companies might come to us and say, "Hey, we're stuck on a specific problem in marketing in general." And we'll advise them on it. Maybe they already have a team; they don't need any execution or leadership, but the CEO might be questioning some strategy, and we'll support them on that. The second way is a lot of times companies, and I think it's important to understand where this company came from, where the idea came from. So running marketing teams in startups for the first 8 years of my career, we always were struggling to get the right people at the right time to make a good marketing team, because marketing shifts as the company grows. So finding the right combination of people and leadership is something that I've seen for so long be a challenge for growing businesses. So lots of times companies will then go to agencies, traditional agencies, and try to get a bandage put on whatever the gap they might have, or to take over the majority of operations. But ultimately, the agency model, and as someone who's worked in an agency before, is that if you're going to grow an agency, you need to either spread your top people or your smartest people too thin, or you need to bring on a lot more people, and the quality might go down. And everyone who has dealt with an agency has dealt with kind of this pod structure. You get an account manager, and then some people under them, but they're typically not experienced enough to be able to go across the entire marketing funnel from top to bottom, diagnose problems, come up with a strategy that can sit, as high as the executive level team, and then go all the way down to the more junior marketing people. So I created Inflection Growth to solve that problem, and our idea was that, hey, if we work with fewer companies but more in depth, we hire more top level people, that marketing executives, people who have grown businesses, that can work directly with these companies on a daily basis, and say, hey, we're in between a marketing agency and an in-house team. You're going to get these people who have grown businesses before, with the backing of all of the mid and junior level people, but you get to work directly with the executives. Then we're going to see better results, and that's what's happened so far. So as a result, the other two ways we work with businesses are that, well, there might be a head of marketing. There also might be some junior level people in a company, and they just need one or the other filled. They either need leadership, to help direct their younger, the junior level people, or um, they need someone under their head of marketing to help execute. So we call that fractional work. And then the final way is some companies just ask us, hey, can you do everything top to bottom? Can you come in, do all of the strategy and then all of the execution? So, kind of full scope of a marketing team. So, to circle back to your question, there's a lot of different reasons why people might need marketing support because it's impossible to just go up and to the right constantly forever. If you've ever seen that where you've never plateaued, then that's awesome. I would love to hear that story. But ultimately, every company gets stuck, whether they're at the beginning, middle, or later on their journey, and they need to either shake things up, they need to replace somebody on their a gap on their team, or they need to get off the ground. And in any of those situations, we love to come in and help solve that problem.
Well, very cool. Well, it's my imagination is going wild and crazy, just picturing the marketing strategy, the funnel being reconfigured, or the org chart being fixed up, like these big picture ideas of where if this company, maybe they've had this momentum, but they've been putting out the fires and they've just been on a path, and they need someone like you to really like look at some of these maybe problems that they don't even know about, or they've been stuck and they don't know why. Well, you've seen so many different things, right? You've seen companies, different verticals, different sizes. And so you had those transferable skills to say, well, hey, you need to get to that next inflection point of growth. And so inflection-growth.com, their approach is to seamlessly integrate into the business, provide fresh ideas, strategies, and effectively execute precisely what is needed. They're a turnkey solution to growth marketing. They optimize efficiency while helping businesses to reach their goals. And you can find out about them at inflection-growth.com. You can schedule a call, see those case studies, and so much more. And before I let you go, Mr. Jake, it's time for the scary ending part of the show where I try to stump you and put you on the spot by asking about a quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind for a fun, helpful quote or lesson?
There's a lot of quotes that come to mind because I feel like on a daily basis we get sort of these either cliche or things that we tell ourselves or someone has told us that help in a certain situation. The one that comes to mind today is if there's doubt, there's no doubt. And I don't think it applies in every aspect of life, but in business, when it comes to whether you're hiring, whether there's a new initiative that you want to do, I think that there needs to be a certain level of confidence and assuredness when you're going into the situation. And if you're riddled with doubt over a certain decision that's being made, you should listen to your gut. So when there's doubt, there's no doubt, meaning that you should trust yourself doubting something.
Ooh, I like that. That's paradoxical, and all the more reason to think about our thinking and investigate and figure out the data. If something isn't quite right, then why is that? And figure out, well, we need to change what we're doing or get that doubt removed. One of two paths. And this is quite just a very strange time we're living in, right? With the internet, with the apps, with the cloud, with AI, and it goes so fast, and it can be so easy to make mistakes and then have regrets about what you did or didn't do. And that's why it's so important to reach out to Mr. Jake Levin and his team at inflection-growth.com. They're not just another marketing team, they're the dream team that you've been searching for. They transcend the conventional role of an agency or in-house team. They're an innovative, injectable marketing team dedicated to partnering with brands to help them reach their next inflection points of growth. So find them at inflection-growth.com. Schedule a call. Have some of these discussions. If what Jake said excited and maybe even enraged you, then it's time to get this to apply to your business and put the team to work and get them to get your company on a path to greatness. So thank you very much, Mr. Jake Levin from inflectiongrowth.com. It's been quite a ride, quite a journey talking about these problems, these case studies. I really appreciate what you brought here today.
Thanks for having me.